Hello, today we're going to be looking at the interactionist approach for beliefs in society for AQA sociology. Now, in the previous lesson, we were looking at Weber and obviously how he viewed and interpreted religion. Now, just as a little bit of a recap here is Weber believed that as society became increasingly industrialized, he believed that we would become more rational and bureaucratic in the sense, thus making the system more efficient. However, there would be a cost. The cost of this would be the loss of faith and belief, which would cause delusion, and the world is demystified. Richness and magic is taken away as a result because we are aware of the processes and the mechanisms that are then operating in the world, and we understand that it's a process of organization rather than it being some mystical being that is controlling our environment or life cycles as a result. Now, this was taken up by Berger. Now, Berger, as an interactionist, is concerned with the effects of these changes on the individual as they strive to create a meaningful reality and make sense of the world. Now, Berger states that in the modern world, there is a plurality of belief systems and a diversity of religions. Hence, individuals are faced with a number of competing belief systems and ways of living. Therefore, it's difficult to maintain that any religion has a monopoly on the truth, a postmodernist stance. So, by the sheer fact that there are a plethora of religions which offer various belief systems, such as Kabbalah, etc., they offer a way of life for individuals to follow, and therefore offering them a belief system which they could choose to utilize that would then allow them to live within society according to that religious or that group's ideology. And a diversity of religions. And of course, we know by now that there's a massive increase of sects in our society, and which therefore means that we've got this diversity which is now occurring within our society, all of which are offering individuals a different variation on the reasons why we are alive and what is our place in the world. Therefore, as it's stated right here, no single religion has the monopoly on the truth. So therefore, no single religion can now be turned to and said that they know exactly why or how we are on the world. Therefore, this is really started to be murkied by the idea and the integration of various belief systems and diversity of religious sects, etc. Now, Berger continues to argue that rationalization and increasing geographical and social mobility means people are far more aware of alternative lifestyles. So, by the fact that we can now travel around the world, we are now interacting with various different religions and belief systems, which then in turn could then affect the way in which we see and we interact with our social world. And in terms of social mobility, the fact that people are now able to move in between classes also means that they'll be running in different circles than obviously previous generations would have run into. So therefore they may be exposed to the cream of the crop in one religion, therefore they might adopt that belief system as a result. This is all because of those alternative lifestyles which people are following. Now, Berger continues to state that the social world is increasingly fragmented and diverse. There are many different beliefs and lifestyles to choose from, and so people are less certain about morality and their identity. So people aren't really focusing down on this morality and identity because they realise that there are other ideas or features which they have to focus on. They are cut off from traditional beliefs and supports, and there are no certainties. This results in anomie. Now, anomie, as we know, is a state of normlessness. So as you can see with the picture that I've got going on the screen right now, it's a breakdown of social bonds between an individual and their community. So therefore, the individual is running around in a state of normlessness because they haven't got that bit of religious ideology or belief system which is now going to give them that social solidarity, which binds them to the rest of society in the sense of shared value consensus, like the functionists would argue. But instead, they are running around not actually certain about what beliefs and support they are going to be offered as a individual due to this diversification of the religious environments. Now, 40 years ago, in The Social Reality of Religion, Berger and Luckman argue that human beings need to see the world as essentially meaningful, ordered, and coherent. While nature and social sciences provide partial accounts of reality, they are unsatisfying in that they fail to address the existential anxieties of life. So, the big questions of life which we need to acknowledge as human beings. So, therefore, they are starting to really identify the idea that the world is a bureaucratic system in a sense. It is ordered and coherent. There isn't mystification about the way in which it operates. So, therefore, these sciences and these natural science are given a partial account as to what's going on, but they do not settle those unknown uncertainties, those things which we cannot control, which can still create tension and anxiety, as Malinowski spoke about in his previous accounts. Religion does provide that means to settle that anxiety through the use of religious rituals. And through the use of these rituals, it then solidifies that social solidarity. But meanwhile, this really isn't happening. We don't see it satisfying these needs any longer. It's just there as a way of ordering our world into a coherent message. And by giving this coherent and ordered message, the idea here is not being met by anything else so far within our spectrum. So we really need to look at it in a deeper sense to really see how we can try to deal with those anxieties of life, and they can obviously dictate to us how they can answer those big questions that we face on a day-to-day basis. Now, they argue religion gives, through its stories and doctrines, a shield against meaninglessness, a total explanation of existence that makes sense of our experiences in a precarious universe. Religion is the audacious attempt to conceive of the entire universe as being humanly significant. Religion also provides moral guidelines and rituals that allow participants to explore and express their feelings in symbolic language. The use of the sociologist is to interpret the symbol system, and it is a value for human life. So for us, that shield against meaninglessness is therefore making sure that the individual feels that their life has got meaning and it has got a rhyme or reason as to why they've operated or they've lived in a specific manner. Now, we know by now religion provides moral guidelines. An example of that is the Ten Commandments. These are rituals, these are guidelines which then dictate and tell an individual how they live. They, as we know by now, they explore and express the feelings in symbolic language, and this could obviously be seen in terms of using hymns, prayers, etc., which are symbolic in senses, and they draw on various features to really help the individual understand that, okay, I might be suffering at the minute, but there is a reason for it. And religion actually starts to deal with this for the individual. So, as religion is really starting to help the individual deal with the idea of religion being a shield against the meaningless, we've got an extra extract from Berger here, who states that the private sphere is consumer orientated and the autonomous individual is free to follow his own subjective preference. So, their own opinions, they can choose what they want to do. He may choose from the assortment of ultimate meanings as he sees fit, guided only by the preferences that are determined by his social biography. So when we talk about his social biography, we talk about his class, his ethnicity, all these things that make you or him him. and just as he would by when he's choosing friends or a partner. So he's going to look at those guidelines in whichever specific religion is offering, and he will pick the one that is best suited to his lifestyle and allowing him to really live a fruitful life whilst matching up with his social biography. If they do not marry up, he may find a bit of tension occurring because the two will need to work in cohesion with one another to ensure that the individual truly adopts the religious doctrine and ideology as a result. And remember, this is all from Berger again that we're looking at. Now, religion is one element of sociology of knowledge that provides individuals in specific social groups with universes of meaning or plausibility structures, and this simply means its believability. So, what religion is started to provide that individual is truly understanding those big life questions. They may be haunting them throughout their whole lives. Now, what Berger continues to state here is traditional societies are united around a taken for granted universe and meaning, but in modern societies, these have fragmented and lost plausibility. This might be due to the multicultural societies that we now live in. Because when we think about traditional societies, it generally would not be diverse in nature. However, this is now happening in the West. So in the West, the dominant meanings are today provided by secular values and beliefs, particularly by liberal humanism and individualism. So we talk about liberal humanism, the idea that you can create your own path. It's not dictated by an external will or a supernatural body. You create your fortune, you create your path. Whilst individualism is really focused down on the individual really honing down on themselves, thinking about what skills they need to develop to be successful in terms of society. Now, this is a massive move away from those traditional views because with those traditional views, individuals will be looking to religions to dictate and tell them how they should be seeing the world, whilst the individuals now exploring it more for themselves. So now religion serves largely to integrate specific subgroups into more private universes of meaning. So what we mean by that is there'll be small sects within society that will have their own guidelines, their own values, their norms, etc. And what that is creating there, with their explanation of the supernatural forces, etc., that is creating for that subgroup their own private meaning of the universe, in a sense, a universe of meaning, because they have got an understanding of what is going on in their world, and it's ordering it for them in a coherent and manner for themselves. Okay, so we're looking at the extract from Berger in 1967 here. Now, what he actually argues is the world-building potency of religion is restricted by the subworlds / the fragmented universes of meaning. The plausibility structure that is in place may be no larger than the nuclear family. So this idea, this universes of meaning, may actually just be really specific to the individual's families. That is creating their own ideology, their own values and norms, which then helps that individual make sense of the world. By resting on such an unstable structure, such as the modern family, and these different religious belief systems, the plausibility structure is tenuous in constructions. So it is not a very stable construction in itself, which could potentially mean it could collapse within itself, meaning the strength and durability is limited to an extent. So when we're looking at this explanation even further, we've got to think, okay, how stable is this for the individual in terms as a belief system? Because if it is not a very stable belief system, potentially the individual may have some negative side effects. Now, the next one we're going to look at is Stark and Bainbridge. They are more recent writers who believe that religion exists to meet the existential needs of the individuals rather than a society as a whole. So it's more focusing back down onto that individual, trying to please their universe of meanings, give them a plausibility structure that allows them to then have norms and values that will allow them to function coherently and properly within society. These needs are universal and essentially unchanging, so religion always has a part to play in human affairs. However much society change in other respects. So even though the individuals are going to be seeking it, the idea of religious doctrine and ideology will always play a part in human affairs. We will always rely on it to help maybe guide our law processes, or even to really help us as individuals to understand why we are on earth and why we are alive today. Now, the next thing we're going to look at here is people have needs and desires that cannot be guaranteed, such as security, so for for their family, for themselves. Health, again, how long will you live for? And how healthy will you continue to be? Success, will you get the job that you want? Esteem, this is all about confidence. So will you have the confidence to pursue careers if you wanted to? And existence beyond the grave. So is there a heaven or is there hell? Now, when society cannot offer the individual the answers to these questions, religion offers compensators, that the deprivations of this life will be corrected or rewarded in the future. Whilst in secular life, the promotion or the revolution might be a future hope, while in religious terms, life will continue after death. There will be rewards of a heavenly life or a better rebirth, so you might be reincarnated, and answers will be provided about the ultimate meaningfulness of existence. So you will have that reason as to why we are alive, due to these religious ideologies. Whilst in secular life, when we separate the church and state from one another, the idea of a revolution is quite possible. However, religious doctrine is just helping us have that bit of stability within our lives. Now, religions that fail to provide such supernatural compensators will lose adherence to those that do. So hence the rise of informal, evangelical and fundamentalist Christian churches at the expense of established institutions such as the Church of England. Because these more radical churches are now giving new hope to modern individuals about what the answers are to these new modern questions. So, is there a life after death? If not, what is there? And these evangelical churches offer it. They offer a plethora of experiences for the individual to feel and nurture, which will then help them deal with those meaningful questions that they deal with potentially on a day-to-day basis internally. Now, we're moving on to the evaluation part here. Now, it's important part of understanding the meanings and behaviour of any social group to see the world from their point of view. So ethnography has therefore an important role to play in researching the nature and role of religions. Now, ethnography is a fantastic research method. So asking individuals to write down their thoughts, their feelings for the day, keep a journal about what are they experiencing. And this in itself will really tell us about how they are processing their lives and really what is the function of religion within their lives. We can produce some good content analysis based off of those journals, those diaries in which individuals provide, and we could really dig deep and discover what role does religion play within that individual's life, particularly in the modern world. Is Berger right? Is it giving us a universal meaning? Is it really helping us develop a base by which we can believe and really absorb some ideology that will help us as an individual deal with the various stresses that we have within our social lives? It's also important to give due weight to the personal aspects of religious meaning, as well as to see wider social functions being fulfilled. Religion is too complex a phenomena to be reduced to the merely social or the merely personal. The two are intimately related. So when we're talking about religion, we need to see that it has got a plethora of functions. We cannot just see it as two individual subsections from one another. The social and the personal are interlinked, and they will also guide the way in which we absorb religious doctrine, because we cannot be socially religious but personally not. They have to be married to one another. Now, the questions individual asks and the rewards they seek are socially given and approved, e.g., one society provides expectations of heaven, while another assumes rebirth in another life. This impacts upon personal meaning and hopes. However, the claim that religion is universally important and necessary in supplying universes of meaning is questionable. Many people in modern societies appear to derive meaning from non-religious sources, or are content to see life as ultimately meaningless, as atheists might argue. Religious compensators are no longer taken seriously. So the idea that they provide us with those ideas of what happens after death is not really truly why individuals might be religious or might try to absorb religious doctrine. They will start to seek ideology from non-religious sources. So they might join a political group which actually then tells them or helps them gather some form of ideology in which informs their values and norms about why they are on this earth. Pressure groups, political parties, they give individuals meaning, the same type of meaning potentially that religion offers them. So when we look at this, the individuals are simply looking and trying to find that stable, meaningful reason as to why we are on this earth. And we know religion offers it, but in a diversifying world, it can change quite dramatically, and it has done. People no longer just look to the Church of England. They will look at other sources such as Kabbalah. We've got Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, all as an option for an individual to look at, and they will pick and choose which one they find best fits with their interpretation of the meaning of the world and meaning of those huge life questions.